Let's take a look at basic graphing on the HP 49G. Let me get it turned on here. Okay. We're looking at basic building blocks. And the importance of these basic building blocks is not to graph itself, but understanding how to do them. Because then later on, we'll combine all these basic building blocks into more complex graphs. So the first one we'll take a look at is y is equal to x. Well, there's an apps button here. If I click the apps button, there's different ways of getting into these, but the first one's plot functions, which is where I want to go, so I do an enter. Next one is equation entry, so I'll go ahead and do an enter on that. Now mine's coming up and telling me that I don't have an equation, so I'll press add. Yours might have one, in which case you go into edit, but I'm going to do an F2 for add. You choose the button that's right below this menu. So this menu here, you just choose the one right below it. And popped up with y1 of x is equal to, and I want to choose my x key. Now I'm going to refer to this as the x key, but it says xt theta. It has a little x in green, whatever color that is. But I'll click that button, and I'll push enter, and that saves it. Now you see draw is over here in my menu, so I go to the button right below that, which is F6, and that's going to give us our graph. So that one looks like this. Y is equal to x squared. You see the second power fairly often in algebra. Now, you see the cancel over here? The F6 is below that, so I'll press F6. Brings us back to here, and you want to make sure you erase. If you don't erase, it'll keep this first graph on there and then do the next graph right on top of it. So we'll do an F5, the button right below the erase. And then I'm going to go into edit. So I go to F1. Now I'll do my backspace. Get rid of that. Okay. Now let's put x squared in. Press my X key. And there's a button here that's y to the x. If I push that, that throws it up in exponent mode. And now I can put 2 up there. Now my cursor is currently up in exponent mode right now, so I want to do my right arrow key to get it out of exponent mode. And then I'll press enter to save it. Now I want to do draw. The button right below the draw is the F6. And gives us our graph. Usually I show x to the third, but it's pretty much the same as one we just did, but we'll look at it anyway. This could be x to the third, x to the fourth, x to the fifth, so forth. Again, I want to choose cancel, so I do F6, the button right below the cancel. And we've got to do erase, so I do an F5 to get rid of that. And then we'll go over to edit, and the button right below that is F1. Now I'll do a backspace, and then one more, and then keep going until we get down to there. If you do it too much, like if I do it there, you can always do on to kind of cancel out of what you're in. Okay, anyway, I'll go back to edit, F1, and I'll do my backspace. Now I'll do x to the third. So I'm going to do my X key, I'll do my Y to the X button, and I'll do a 3. Now I'm currently up in exponent mode now, so I'm going to press my right arrow key to get out of exponent mode, and then I'll do an enter to save that. And then I'll do F6 to draw, and then we get that. That right arrow key will get you out of whatever you're in, and that'll become important in some problems. Let's take a look at y is equal to x to 1/2. Now I'm showing how do you handle it when you got any fraction in your exponent. It's actually more than that. This is how you handle it when you have more than a single number or a single variable up there. Typically, on most calculators, the trick to it is you have to put parentheses around the exponent. On this calculator, you do not have to worry about that, and let me show you why. If I do a F6 to cancel, and I do F5 to erase. Now, I'm definitely not an expert on this calculator, so you may know of easier ways to do it, and that's fine. I know just enough to fumble around in this calculator. The calculator I use in my college algebra classes is the Texas Instruments, so that's one I'm familiar with, TI-83, 84. But I do have students come in every once in a while with these calculators, so I'd like to provide them a resource they can go to do the things in college algebra. I'll go ahead and edit. So I do F1. I do a backspace. And get rid of those. Okay, now we're going to do an X. And then Y to the X. Now notice I'm up in exponent mode. So I do 1 divided by 2. And I do not have to worry about the fact that putting parentheses around the exponent because it's already up in exponent. So it's kind of a neat feature of the HP49G. Now if I press the right arrow key, it gets that out of the fraction. Why is that important? Well, if I now did a +1, see how that +1 is up in the fraction. I'll do a backspace to get rid of that. If I press the right arrow key again, that gets it out of the exponent. Now if I did a +1, you notice it puts it after that. That's why it's important to know where you're at in terms of the getting out of the exponent, getting out of this, getting out of that. Anyway, I'll do a backspace. I want those. Okay, now press enter. And now do F6 for draw. And there's our graph. Looks like that. Well, let's take a look at y is equal to square root of x. So I'll do F6 for cancel. I'm going to do an F5 to erase it. And then I'm going to do an F1 to edit. I'll do my backspace. Get rid of those. Now I want the square root. I actually have a square root button here. So if I push this, you see it's got a square root symbol and it's got a little bit coming down here. That means that they want you to clearly see what's underneath the square root. Now I'll put my X key in. To get out of the square root, I press my right arrow key. And now if I did a +1, I would see the +1 appear after the square root. So again, very important that right arrow key gets you out of whatever you're in. Then I'll press enter to save that. Then I'll do F6 for draw. And that gives us the same graph we just looked at, which is not surprising, because x to the 1/2 is the same as the square root of x. It's a different way of writing it. This is writing it in rational exponents, fractional powers. This is in radical form. Now let's take a look at the cube root of x. I'm going to press my F6 to cancel. I'll do an F5 to erase, F1 to edit. Then I'm going to do my backspace, get rid of those. Now I'll put my index in first. The index is whatever number's in the slot right here. So put 3 in. And you see above the square root button, we have like a radical of some sort in red. You can't see it real well on the screen. At least with my eyes, I can't. But if I do this red button, and then I choose the square root button, then that'll take whatever number I put in first, and it'll put it as my index. And I'll put my X key in, and I'll do a right arrow key to get out of the radical. And press enter to save that. And now I do F6 to draw. And that gives us our that graph right there. This looks like that. Now, even though it's exactly the same as the one we just looked at, idea-wise, let's take a look at the fourth root of x. The only difference here is our index is 4, the number in a slot. Well, I'll press my F6 to cancel. I'm going to do my F5 to erase, and then I'll do my F1 to edit. Do my backspace. Put my 4 first, and then I'll do my red button, and then this square root button, and I'll put my X key in, and I'll do a right arrow key to get it out of the radical. And that again, that 4 there is not 4 times, that's my index. And I'll press enter to save, and then I'll do F6 to draw. You'll find it looks like the square root, but it's a little bit closer down to the x-axis. Now I thought this was interesting right here. See how this is going straight up? That's a flaw with the calculator. It's not going straight up. It actually goes down to the origin. So it should look something like that. If you worked with nuts with graphing calculators, you know they're not perfect. You have to kind of deal with their problems. If you want to get exact graphs, you have to go take Calc 1 or Business Calc. Anyway, I'll do F6 to cancel. I'll do F5 to erase. And I'll do F1 to edit. And I'll do a backspace. And now I'm going to look for the absolute value. It's above a button. Here it is, the divide. See the ABS right there? So to get to that, then I'm going to press my purple button, and then my divide. And you see your absolute value bars appear on there. I'll do my X key. Again, to get it out of the absolute value, you press your right arrow key. And then I'll press enter. Now you don't have to get it out of your absolute value or whatever before you press enter, but I'm doing it just as good practice so you can see that if you have more that goes after the absolute value, then you'll see how to get out of it. And I'll do F6 to draw. And that's our picture. Sketch. Well, let's take a look at how to handle fractions. Let's say we got y is equal to x plus 2 over x minus 3. And I could care less what this graph looks like. I'm demonstrating how do you work with fractions on your calculator. And the general rule for any graphing calculator is that if you have more than a single number or a single variable on top or bottom, you have to put parentheses around the part. So put parentheses around the top, and we'll put parentheses around the bottom. Now, if we just had a single x up here, you would not need the parentheses around it. It doesn't hurt, but you don't need it. Now, some calculators you need to do this, some you don't. Now I'm going to do F6 to cancel. I'm going to do an F5 to erase. And then I'll do F1 to edit. Do my backspace. And then I'll do my beginning parentheses. Now the beginning parentheses is kind of weird on this one, because it's kind of tied with the closing parentheses. And you see the minus over here above it is a parentheses. So I'm going to do purple minus, and it puts a set of parentheses there. So I'll put x plus 2. Now I'm inside the parentheses right now, so I'm going to do a right arrow key. And I'm not outside of the parentheses now, am I? You know, if I started doing a divide, if I did a divide, see where it's at. That isn't what we want, necessarily. So I do a backspace, and I'll do right arrow key one more time to get out of the parentheses. Then I'll do a divide. And I'll do my parentheses again, so I'll do my purple minus, then x minus 3. Did I need to do the parentheses on that one? I don't know. Since it's already down denominator, probably not. But again, I'm just giving you a good practice whenever you're working with different calculators. I'll do a right arrow key. That gets, you see where it's got highlighted now? So if I did a +1, it'd appear after the minus 3 there. Another right arrow key, I got the x minus 3. And if I did a +1, it'd appear after the x minus 3. Do it one more time. If I did a +1, it'd be after the parentheses. So I'd have parentheses x minus 3, close parentheses, plus or minus 1. Now if I do one more, now if I did a -1, see where it appears? So get used to working with this calculator with that right arrow key to get out of whatever you want, so you know where to put your rest of your problem at. And then I press enter to save that. Okay. Notice it gets rid of my parentheses anyway. Now do F6 for draw. And this is almost your answer. This vertical line should not be here. So your graph is everything but that vertical line. Now, in different videos, I'll show how to zoom so you can see more of a particular graph. But we're not going to worry about that now. So our graph looks something like that right there. Okay, let's look at this one. Y equals dash square root dash x dash 3. Most calculators, you have two different dashes. This one right here, see where the 7 button is? Right above that, it says plus / minus. Well, this is the negative key. So if I want to put a negative in there, that's how you do that. And this over here is a minus. In general, if your dash is the very beginning of whatever, it's a negative. So this dash here is the very beginning of our problem, so this will be a negative. This dash here is the very beginning of our square root, so it's a negative. If your dash is between two things, then it's a minus. This is between the x and the 3, so it's a minus. Now you might argue that this dash is between the square root and the x, and yes it is, but that goes against our first rule that says if it's a first and whatever, it's a negative. Now some calculators do not matter on this, and I think 49G doesn't matter which dash you put where. It knows which one to use. And we'll play with that a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to F6 to cancel, do an F5 to erase, and I'll do F1 to edit, and I'll do a backspace, get rid of those. There we go. Okay, we said the first one's a negative, so I'll do the negative key, and then I want to square root, and then we want a negative, and then I'll put my x in, minus 3. Now if I press right arrow key, it gets me out of that negative 3 or minus 3. Another right arrow key gets me out of the negative x minus 3, and another right arrow key gets me out of the radical. So enter, save it, and then F6 to draw. And that's our graph. Well, let's cancel. So I do F6, and I choose F5 for erase. And then I'm going to go into edit, F1. Do a backspace. Get rid of those. Now instead of this being a negative before the x, let me put a minus. And let's see if that affects it. I don't think it will. The other HP calculator I created already, it didn't matter which dash you put where. But anyway, let's see. I put in my negative first, and then I want my square root, and I'm going to put a minus before the x. And did I click that? I guess it's not going to let me do that. That's interesting. Negative x. The other calculator let me do it, and it worked just fine. Okay. Anyway, then minus 3. And then enter. And now we draw it. Let's make sure it's okay. Okay. It's thinking. Okay. F6 to cancel. F5 to erase. And F1 to edit. No backspace. So it wouldn't let me put the minus before the x. Curious. Okay, now instead of this negative before the 3, or the minus before the 3, let me put a negative there. Okay, so I'll put my negative here. I'll do my square root. And then I'll put my negative x. And then I'll put a negative 3. That's really curious. Did I do that right? Let's try it again. Okay, I put in my negative x, so negative, and then my x. Okay, I'm watching it now. And then I do a negative 3. Now this is what a lot of calculators will do. What they're assuming is when I put in a negative x, negative 3, they're thinking I mean multiplication. So they take negative x times negative 3, which a negative times a negative is a positive. So this automatically does it for us. And you press enter on the graph. And then if I do F6 for draw, we're going to see a different graph eventually. Should do the Jeopardy theme here. Assuming comes back. Grab a drink while doing that. That one didn't even work. How interesting. Most of them will give a graph coming off here. It looks like the square root with a negative in front of it flipped across the x-axis reflected. This one didn't give us anything, so it just gave us the wrong graph. So it is important to know when to use which dash. When to use the negative, when to use the minus. Now I do F6 for cancel. I'm going to do F5 to erase, and I'll do, I'm not ready for edit yet, but our last one. This I'm going to combine together some of our basic building blocks we've looked at. X to the power of x squared, I think it's minus 3x. Let's see. Minus 3x. I'm learning myself in each one of these. Each calculator has its own little weird parts to it. Now, again, normally, if you got more than a single number, a single variable in your exponent, you put parentheses around it. We do not have to worry about that for the HP 49G. So let's just type this in. I'm going to do a F1 for edit. I'm going to do a backspace, like that. And then I'll do my X key. And then I'll do my Y to the X button. And now I'm up in exponent mode, so I don't need those parentheses. They don't hurt anything, but you don't need them. I'll do my X squared, so I'll do my X key again. I'll do the Y to the X. And I'll do the second power. Now I'm currently up in the exponent. So I want to do a right arrow key to get out of the exponent before I do the minus 3x. Plus square root of x. So I'm going to do my square root button. And then I'll do my X key. I press my right arrow key to get out of the square root. I do my right arrow key there, and it gets me out of the negative or minus 3x plus square root of x. Another right arrow key gets me out of the x squared minus 3x plus square root of x. Another one, it gets me out of the exponent. So then now if I did a minus 1, see how this isn't in the exponent. So I'll do a backspace, get rid of that. And then press enter to save. Now do F6 to draw. It'll probably take a little while. Doesn't seem like it's the fastest. There it is. And it gives us something that looks like that. Now, I'm like I say, I'm not an expert on the HP 49G. Don't contact me and say, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? What little I've shown you is about to extend my knowledge. Sometimes I get into things I don't know how to handle. Like if I do F6 to cancel. And I think I have two HP graphing calculators. I struggle with both of them. And if I do F5 to erase, say I went into edit, F1. I've shown this already, but if I do my backspace, I do it too many times, like that. Again, the on gets you out of some things. Let's see if I do draw. This comes back up. I'm going to show you another item. Some of the functions I get into, I cannot get out. I try every option I can, and I just cannot get out of it. I just shut the emulator off and start over. But let me try to go to edit. I do an F5. Okay, so now I'm in edit, and I'm not quite sure what edit does exactly. But I'm right here. I'm trying to get out of it. If I press the on, see, then that takes me out of here. So that gets me out of it. I think last night, when I finally gave up because I was disgusted after I'd created this entire video, I'd went into edit, and I had tried to go, let's see, backspace. I had tried to use my arrow keys to go over to something, like the right here, and I tried to use my backspace. And then I did something. Maybe I tried to put a negative in, or I don't know what I tried to do. Tried to do something. and I got it hung up, and I couldn't get out of it. I pressing the on, that didn't do it. I was trying to do a cancel of all kinds of sorts. Finally, just had to shut it down. Just curious. That, which should be a plus, it didn't automatically change it though. Let's see, F6 to draw, just out of curiosity. Now there's our original one. Remember, I didn't do any erase, so it's still there. So this new one's gonna be drawn over it. Now I'm very impressed with the features of the HP. I think it has more features than Texas Instruments could ever dream of. But with those features comes complexity. Okay, why do we use a graphing calculator? Let's say you took the previous math course and you were just happy as could be plotting points, took great joy in it, best point plotter in your class. Everybody else was happy with 3 points. You had to do like 9 or 10 each time. Well, take this example. You know what that is. That's our parabola. That's our U-shaped graph. Or is it? Maybe it's coming like this, and it's the heart-shaped graph. Not that I can draw through points. Maybe it's coming up like this and coming back down over here. Maybe this is coming up through there and coming back down over here. Maybe this is coming down over here at x equals 500. You just need to plot 500 points in your t-chart, and you would have saw it come back down. Plotting points is the worst way in the world to graph unless you already know what the graph looks like. Well, think what I'm saying. If you already know what it looks like, then why are you graphing it? Calculator also has its problems. If we look at our standard viewing window, which might look like this, it again looks like the parabola. We don't see it coming back down. Now we can use the leading coefficient test to tell us a little bit more about the graph to see that there's more to it, but still it's an imperfect. There's a tool that's not quite perfect. I learn to speak English someday, but it's a much better than plotting points. If you go on and take Calc 1 and Business Calc, like I said, you'll learn the techniques to find out the true picture of the graph. And that was basic graphing on the HP 49G. And again, to exit out, what we're doing, if we press cancel here, and if I just go back to apps, I can probably go out. Or if you press on, that'll take you back to where we started.